Hi everyone, welcome back to the Rustic Remedy Group Weight Loss Program. We are about to embark on our third week of the program, which is all about proteins. But before we do, I'd like to recap the last week on vegetables and just touch base on how everybody did. So first, to recap your tasks for the week. There were 3 of them. First, it was to figure out how many vegetables you're typically getting in a day or a week. Then it was to come up with a plan, a daily veggie plan that would get you close to the goal, if not meeting the goal of 5 or more servings a day. And then finally, it was to record all of this on your tracking sheet, on your worksheet, and to keep track of your progress during the week. Making any notes or ideas that come to mind about how to more easily meet your goal each day. I hope it went well for everyone. I hope even if you didn't get to the 5 servings, you ended up eating a lot more vegetables than you normally do. That's a great accomplishment, and I think as you keep building on each week, it'll get easier and easier to get more veggies in. I also wanted to just chat a little bit about some of the comments and questions that came up in the Facebook group. There was some really great interaction this week on there. I appreciate all of your time and attention and feedback and support really of each other as well. Some really good ideas came up this week in the group. So first, just to go over some of the questions that came up in case you missed them. There was one question about the quality of vegetables and if fresh versus canned made a difference. And my feeling about that is, first and foremost, any vegetable is better than no vegetable. So whatever is easiest for you, whatever you're willing to do, start with that, okay? Then the next step would be to try to do as much fresh as possible. Of course, being mindful of what's in season, what's available where you live. But fresh is going to give you the most nutritional benefit. After that would be frozen. Frozen actually nowadays is really quite good. They flash freeze right after picking, and it really preserves most, if not all, of the nutrition in the fruits and vegetables. So frozen is another really solid option. Canned is going to be your third option. It also has improved over time, but it's still not going to preserve the nutritional value of the vegetable quite as well as frozen or fresh will. So for that reason, you want to be just careful to not overdo the canned. So that was a really great question. Thank you for asking that this week in the group. Another question that came up was whether you need to spread out your veggies over the day, if that really matters. And really for vegetables, that's not as important. I would say what's most important is just that you get it in. And if that's all at once, if that's over 2 meals, or if that's over 3 meals, however you do it is totally fine. So just really make it work for you. And another great question that came up was about digestive side effects, which I appreciate that question because I have a feeling that probably many of you were dealing with that, particularly if you're not used to eating a lot of vegetables right now. Adding in the extra fiber can be a challenge on the gut. It can create more bloating or gas or cramping or just discomfort. So a couple of thoughts for that is, first, the more you are used to eating vegetables, the longer you stick with that, the easier it's going to get on your gut. So your gut will get better at breaking down and digesting the fiber, and you should feel more comfortable because of that. So part of it is just, perseverance and sticking with it. The other thing, though, is to really think about the quality of the vegetables. So cooked is going to be a lot easier on your gut than raw, right? And particularly in the wintertime, we might want to try to do more cooked vegetables anyway. So doing different soups or, steamed, saute, roasted, etc. is all going to be easier on your tummy than a salad. So that could be another strategy. And then a third strategy is adding some warm liquid. So adding some digestive tea or even a cup of warm water could also help make it a little bit easier to break down the fiber in your gut. Some great herbal digestive teas like ginger or fennel, which is actually even known for reducing gas, might be really helpful. So just to try to make it a little less uncomfortable as your body adjusts to the extra fiber. There was also some great comments in the group about just strategies and ideas for trying to get more vegetables in. I appreciate the idea of batch cooking, making a large soup at the beginning of the week, portioning that out into little containers and then being able to eat off of that all week, that's a great idea and very user-friendly for those of us who are sometimes too busy during the week to think about the extra cooking involved. Also, maybe even just adding a side salad to what you're already eating. So some really good suggestions came up this week. Thank you all again for sharing. The last thing besides vegetables was to check in on is your hydration. So part of your jobs this week was to carry over the hydration goal, and I hope that went well for you. I'm hoping that your second week thinking about hydration was maybe a little bit easier than the first week. Perhaps you've come up with some strategies that are working for you. So just a reminder that as we move into proteins, that we're still going to track hydration and we're still going to track vegetables, okay? And you might even want to print out some blank tracking sheets and just keep that as part of your homework for the week to make sure you're really staying on top of it. I think once any of these tasks become second nature, they become easy for you, you're meeting your goals easily most days, then you won't need to continue tracking. But until that happens, these worksheets can be really helpful in just keeping you on task, okay? So don't forget what you've already done as we move forward and talk about proteins. So let's go ahead and start with our proteins with the next slide here, where with your first task for the week. So your first task for this week is to pull out your book and read through the chapter on protein, week 3. And part of what you're going to learn, if you haven't already read this chapter, is what foods count as good protein sources, and also the importance of buying good quality proteins, particularly when it comes to animal protein. So first, just to review, what are some good protein sources? And I have them listed out there for you on the slide, but they're also listed in your book with even more details. So please refer to that. But basically, you have plant-based proteins and you have animal-based proteins, right? And within each of those categories, there's a lot of different examples. For plant proteins under beans, I would also include soy food, right? Your soy is a type of bean, so soy would encompass the bean category. Lentils are part of your legumes. Those are also really good protein sources and very high fiber, right? So just again, piggybacking on our veggie week, be mindful of as you start adding more plant proteins into your diet that you are also adding in more fiber. So we need to be aware of that digestively. Nuts, seeds, and I would say the butters as well from those nuts and seeds, right? Using nut butters or seed butters are also great protein options. And then you have your animal-based proteins. You have your different red meats. That could be beef or lamb. That could be bison, venison. You have your different poultries, chicken and turkey or duck, eggs, and your dairy foods. And out of your dairy, cottage cheese and cheese are probably going to be your highest protein options, followed by yogurt. Particularly Greek yogurt is going to be a higher protein option. So there's really a lot of choices when it comes to protein. And although most people are not deficient in protein, what I do find when I work with folks is that they tend to be not as diverse in their protein sources, right? It's like they're either having chicken every day or meat every day. And part of what our goal is going to be for this week is to not only make sure that we're getting enough protein, but that we're getting a good variety of protein. So the part of it is making sure you recognize what your options are for protein. And then also, like I said previously, to buy the best quality you can afford when it comes to animal protein. I have more information in your book on that, but commercially raised animal foods are really quite problematic, not only nutritionally, but also as far as increasing inflammation in the body, let alone the humane concerns with animal treatment. So please be mindful of that as you purchase your animal foods and really do buy the best quality you can afford, okay? Let's move on then to our second task, which is figuring out how much protein you actually need in a day. I have the calculation there as far as figuring out your protein needs. Essentially, it's going to be based on your weight, and know that there's going to be a little bit of a range there, particularly if you're quite a bit overweight. Your protein needs, like following that calculation, are probably going to be a little bit higher than you actually need, which is why I gave you a range of 0.8 to 1.0 being the goal. And also just to be mindful that, you're not going to get the exact same amount of protein every single day. So having a range as a goal is completely appropriate. And then some tools to help you reach your goal, right? So I have the picture of the plate there again, because that could be one tool that might be just really easy, user-friendly, and still appropriate for a lot of you. Filling about a quarter of your plate with your protein is, approximately how much you should be shooting for at each meal. If, like in the example there, if that's an animal-based protein, like I think that's chicken, that's going to be about the size of your hand, which is more or less 3 to 4 ounces, depending on how big of a hand you have. And part of this week is going to be figuring out how do we calculate this protein that we're eating, right? So what is 3 to 4 ounces? Particularly as it pertains to grams, right? Because the calculation I'm asking you to do is going to tell you in grams how much protein you need in a day. So more or less 7 grams of protein, regardless of whether it's animal or plant-based, okay? 7 grams of protein is about 1 ounce by weight of protein. And that's going to translate a little bit differently depending on the type of food we are referring to. So again, refer back to the book. That's going to give you more examples to help you figure that out this week, okay? So the plate could be one tool, and another tool you might want to use is to actually look up the nutritional content, the protein content of different foods. So I give you, in the book, I give you a website address for one tracker that could be really useful. I use that one a lot. It's nutritiondata.self.com, and you can look up any food. Pretty much has a very extensive database. You can adjust it by amount, and then it will calculate for you how much protein in addition to all the other macro and micronutrients in that food. So that could be a really helpful tool. If any of you are already using MyFitnessPal to track your exercise or to track calories, this also tracks protein, and it also has a pretty good food database, so you could look up food in there as well. I want you to, as far as this week goes in figuring out protein, I'm not expecting you to always use a tracker. I know that's a significant sort of extra amount of work, but I think for this first week, it's going to be worth the time of doing that just to make sure you feel really comfortable ballparking how much protein you're getting at each meal, okay? So at least try to commit to it this week just to give you the information, and then going forward, you may not need to continue to look things up. So the first task is calculating, right? And the third task is spreading your protein out over the day. And this is unlike vegetables, it is important to spread your protein out over the day. We don't want to save all that up for the end of the day. We want to have a little bit at every meal, right? So going again back to the plate, about a quarter of your plate at every meal. And the reasons for this are several fold there, as you can see on the slide. So part of it is that it's going to increase your satiety, your feeling of being satisfied with the meal, your feeling of fullness, right? It's going to help your meal stay with you longer so you don't get hungry again in another hour or two. So part of it is for that purpose. Part of it is that it's going to help balance your blood sugar, right? Which is important if you're having any issues with blood sugar, but also it's just important in keeping your energy really stable, keeping your brain, right, sort of being able to think and concentrate, and we don't want you to get low blood sugar mid-afternoon. So protein is really important for that purpose. It's going to also help feed your metabolism, right? And this is, again, kind of underlying this whole program is keeping your metabolism going, which also improves energy. And also by spreading your protein out over the day, it's going to decrease the amount of stress on your kidneys, because your kidneys are responsible for dealing with extra protein in your body. So really important to think about how you can incorporate it at each meal and not save it up just for dinner. Okay, your last task then is to think about how you can increase the variety of the proteins you're eating over the course of a week. And this is going to be part of coming up with a protein plan for the week. The reasons for this is, by getting a good variety, by rotating through different proteins, you're going to decrease the chances of you overdoing any one protein, right? And it's also going to improve the variety of benefits that you're getting from different foods. So I give you a general guide there on the slide, and this is also in the book that you can refer back to. And as you think through your week, think about how you can kind of integrate these different proteins, plant and animal-based. The only exceptions here would be if you're not eating any animal foods. If you're vegetarian or vegan, then obviously you're going to be restricted to the amount of variety you can do. Vegetarian is going to be restricted to the legumes, nuts and seeds, dairy, and maybe eggs, depending. If you're vegan, then you're really just left with those last two there, your legumes, which are your beans and lentils, and your nuts and seeds, right? And it's going to be important that you include those every day because those are going to be your only protein options. So based on your preferences, I want you to try to get as much variety as you can, okay? Lastly, we're going to go back to our book and record all of this into our protein worksheet. So right there on your worksheet, you can figure out your needs. You can write in your protein plan for the week. So sort of think it through over the weekend, get to the grocery store, make sure you're all ready to go. And then just like you've done with the last 2 weeks, go ahead and track your progress throughout the week to see how close you are to actually meeting your goals. Okay, and of course using that bottom section for brainstorming and ideas that arise. And that's it. Those are your tasks for the week, okay? So just to recap here. So first you're going to determine how much protein you need. Then you're going to come up with a plan to do two things, to include some type of protein at every meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, okay, and a snack if you're doing any planned snacks in there. And then secondly, how to rotate through the different proteins over the course of the week so you're getting a good variety of protein. And then thirdly, tracking your progress each day on your worksheet, okay? Remember to continue with your hydration plan and your veggie plan this week. So you have three goals that you're working on this week. Remember to record your weight, to check your weight and record it on your weight tracker on the day and time that you had decided for yourself. And remember to get on the Facebook group, okay? Read what others are posting, share how you're doing, share any questions or challenges or successes, anything that you want to contribute is very much appreciated by everyone. And as always, please feel free to email me privately as needed, okay? Wishing you all lots of luck this week. Until next time, happy eating.